Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, we'll be making this summer dress inspired by a lot of dresses I've been seeing online lately. To start, we're going to take the front bodice block and mark where you want the bottom of the bust to be and the top of the bust. Then mark 1/2 inch away from the armhole and draw a line coming out towards center front at about 45 degrees. After that, you're going to draw half of the triangle opening. I drew mine at 1.5 inches long by 1/2 inch, but I would suggest starting 3 inches long because I ended up making it deeper later. Then connect the triangle to the previous line. Now we're going to mark 3 lines perpendicular to the bottom of the bodice. Follow how I've drawn them here. They don't have to be exact. Cut around the new bodice piece and then cut up the lines, leaving 1 millimeter or 2 attached. Draw a straight line and tape the first section onto the line. Draw a line coming out of the bottom of that section. Tape the second section 1.5 inches away, then tape third and fourth sections 2 inches apart. Trace around the sections, creating a new piece. I added 1/2 inch seam allowance all around, except I left the center front alone and added 1/4 inch plus 3/8 inch for seam allowance. I made a quick mock of the bodice piece and decided that I needed to add 1 inch to the bottom and 1/8 inch to the top. For the rest of the bodice, you're going to mark the previous measurement that sits under the bust, then I marked down 1 inch because I lengthened the top of the bodice. Cut out the bottom bodice piece and fold the dart closed, add tape. Trace the top of the dart and around the front and bottom, then rotate the dart closed and trace the rest. Draw a line coming out of the center front of the skirt and then tape down the bottom bodice piece as shown, and then use a curved ruler to smooth out the gap. Trace around the new piece and add 1/2 inch seam allowance except for the center front. Trace the back bodice and rotate out the dart. The side seam length will be the same as the bodice side seam. Trace the back skirt block and rotate out the darts. Draw a line up center back, then tape on the back bodice piece as shown and blend with a curved ruler. I ended up cutting some of the back bodice to match the skirt, but if I did this again I would have added more to the skirt instead because I end up having to recut the back pieces and add about 1 inch to the seam allowance. Walk the pattern to check if the front and back side seams are the same length. Add to the top or shorten if needed. Add 1/2 inch seam allowance all around, including the middle. I forgot to do that in this clip, but after that I added 1/4 inch to the top. To start construction, I gathered from notch to notch using a long stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, then pivoted 90 degrees when you meet the second notch, and then sewed a stitch, then pivoted 90 degrees again and sew back to the first notch 1/8 of an inch away. I gathered each side of the bust to measure 8 5/8 of an inch from center front to the side seam. Repeat to the lining piece and then pin right sides together. Sew along the top, including the underarms, but not the side seams or bottom. Turn the inside and clip the corners and the V-notch. I made the notch deeper by sewing it 1/2 inch deeper as shown and re-clipped it. Pin down 1/2 inch of the top and sew down 1/8 of an inch for the tunneling. Pin the self fabric to the lining, both right sides up, and zigzag stitch or serge 1/4 inch. Serge or zigzag stitch the bottom of the bodice, then pin right sides together to the skirt and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the back self panel and matching lining right sides together and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Stop about 1.5 inch from center back so that invisible zipper installation is easier. Here I cut 1 inch off the bottom of the lining so it doesn't show while wearing. Do this to all of the lining. Pin the back panels to the front right sides together and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'll link an invisible zipper tutorial below because I didn't get the footage of that because I had to resize the dress. I took a 40 inch by 1 inch piece of fabric, ironed it, folded in half, then turned the raw edges to meet the fold and ironed again. Then I folded it in half one last time and sewed it down at about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make 2 of these so you'll have 2 straps. Sew one side of the strap about 1/4 of the way into the back. Adjust as needed. Then I pulled the other end of the strap through the tunneling and tied the bow while wearing. Serge the lining or do a rolled hem, and then roll up the serge self fabric and top stitch it down, or do a rolled hem. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Bye!
I swear